You're listening to ayahuascapodcast.com.
This is my opinion that substance use is a problem, but if it becomes a problem, it's a mental health problem. And we shouldn't be putting people in jail because they have mental health problems. Like you said, if we're allowing people to drink alcohol, if we're allowing them to smoke cigarettes, we should allow them to use drugs. And if their drug use becomes problematic, we should offer them supports rather than prison.
I recently interviewed Gabor Mate, and he says, don't look for addiction, look for the pain. People that are addicted is not because of the substance. Sometimes it could be like, opiates and stuff.
Some substances are more addictive, but there are many people who use substances recreationally, even addictive substances, and they do it sporadically because they have supports, they have a good social network, they have meaning in life, they have reasons to live. But if you don't have these things, it's so easy to spiral.
Like this famous rat experiment where they cocaine and sugar or sugar water, and then eventually got so addicted. But then they put it in like a perfect environment and they stopped taking the cocaine. Exactly.
Because antidepressants suck. They have such bad side effects, and like you said, they're addictive. And with psychedelics, you can take a large dose once every few months, and that's probably enough. And if microdosing is effective, then it would be the same. Like the side effects people are reporting is like, feeling a little bit hot or cold, some GI stuff, sleep problems, nothing major. People with SSRIs are like, they lose their sex drive, they gain weight, they become fatigued. It's like really, really bad things. So if the case is that psychedelics are as effective as antidepressants, that's amazing. So we found an antidepressant that basically has no side effects.
Like a lot of people don't know that the very first antidepressant brought to the West was actually MAOI from ayahuasca.
And we discovered serotonin thanks to LSD. We were like, oh, LSD is doing something to the brain. Let's track that because LSD mimics serotonin. And that's how we discovered serotonin, which is now like such a huge thing.
Yeah, and you say like people taking a large dose of psychedelics every few months, and it's same as having antidepressants. What about those people that do it once and they're good for a few years?
That's amazing. I think that's less common, but that does happen.
Yeah, it's definitely less common. Hi guys, and welcome to Ayahuasca Podcast. As always, with you, the host, Sam Believ. Today I'm having an interview with Rotem Petranker. Is that correct?
Accurate.
Rotem is a psychedelic researcher and PhD candidate in psychology. Not a candidate anymore?
I have a PhD now.
Okay, so not a candidate anymore. PhD in psychology and neuroscience at McMaster University.
I'm now a postdoctoral fellow at McMaster University.
Amazing. He's the Associate Director of Psychedelic Studies Research Program at the University of Toronto and co-founder of the Canadian Centre for Psychedelic Science. His work focuses on microdosing, attention, emotional regulation, and meaning-making in the modern world. Rotem is also a strong advocate for open science and ethical psychedelic research. You have to tell ChatGPT about your progress so it knows and updates. Yeah. This episode is sponsored by La Huayra Ayahuasca Retreat. At La Huayra, we combine affordability, accessibility, and authenticity. La Huayra, connect, heal, grow. Guys, I'm looking forward to hosting you. Rotem, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Rotem, let's start with your history and maybe your upbringing and your early life and what brought you to this line of work.
Yeah, it's actually not so interesting or not so, I think some people have life-changing experiences with psychedelics and that's what draws them to do this kind of work. But for me, it was just because it was becoming very topical and trendy, and there was very little research on it, especially microdosing. So at the time when I started doing microdosing research, there were no published studies on microdosing at all, and people were doing it so much. So I just thought that this was something that we need to study. And then, it kind of snowballed from there. I became a microdosing guy, but I'm mostly a scientist who is interested in discovering new things.
Are you on microdose right now?
I'm not.
I would not tell if I were you as well.
Yeah, I've actually given an interview before where I was on TV in Canada and I said that I could be on a microdose right now and they wouldn't know. And then they asked and I said, well, I'm not, but if I told you that I'm on a microdose of LSD, you'd say, oh, okay. But if I told you that I'm on a microdose of heroin, you'd be horrified.
Yeah.
And that's weird because these are all drugs and We're all adults. We should be able to have agency over our bodies.
He might or might not be microdosing right now, but yeah, I totally agree. This is stupid.
Yeah.
You can drink alcohol, you can kill yourself. Why can't you take whatever you want to take, especially psychedelics, which are proven to be pretty safe? Like, is that the open science topic?
No, this is more about legalization. This is my opinion that substance use is a problem, but if it becomes a problem, it's a mental health problem, and we shouldn't be putting people in jail because they have mental health problems. So I think if we're, like you said, if we're allowing people to drink alcohol, if we're allowing them to smoke cigarettes, we should allow them to use drugs. And if their drug use becomes problematic, we should offer them supports rather than prison.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. At least we could, let's say if the psychedelics are completely legal and affordable, because most of them are, mushrooms very cheap to grow.
Yeah.
Then people come to pharmacy to buy them legally. At least we can give them a brochure, here's a dosage, here's, recommendations. They can pay taxes, legalizing, I live in Colombia right now. And it's a topic I think about a lot because, the whole cocaine story and how it hurt the place. The moment they legalize cocaine, it stops making money to any criminals. It becomes like a potato. Like, what are you gonna... Coca grows everywhere.
Yeah, this is the same as what happened with cannabis in Canada. Once it became legalized, then the black market doesn't get all this money. It goes into paying essentially your taxes, and then it goes into all these social programs that you need. So,
exactly, to support people that do get addicted. And at the end of the day, I recently interviewed Gabor Mate, and he says, don't look for addiction, look for the pain.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm paraphrasing it, but something like that. It's like people that are addicted is not because of the substance. Sometimes it could be opiates and stuff.
Some substances are more addictive, but there are many people who use substances recreationally, even addictive substances, and they do it sporadically because they have supports. They have a good social network. They have meaning in life. They have reasons to live. But if you don't have these things, it's so easy to spiral.
Like this famous rat experiment where they cocaine and sugar or sugar water, and then eventually got so addicted. But then they put it in a perfect environment and it stopped taking the cocaine. Exactly. So you said you got interested in microdosing and there were no studies. Yeah. So, and obviously now you're working on studies and today you're going to present on it. Tell us, what did you find?
I'm hesitant to tell you because I guess you won't come to my talk if I tell you. You're busy. It's okay. I'll tell you.
I'll post it a long time from now. So
perfect.
It's not going to prevent anyone from coming.
Okay. What did we find? So our study, let me tell you a little bit about the design first before I tell you about what we found. We wanted to see if a microdose of psilocybin, and when I say microdose, we used 2 milligrams of psilocybin. That is roughly the equivalent of maybe 2.2 or 0.3 grams of dry mushrooms. Mm-hmm. We wanted to see if this dose will help people that have a diagnosis of major depressive disorder. So if it will reduce their depression symptoms. Now, when we were thinking about how many times to administer the microdose, the most popular way to do this is basically twice a week, every 3 days. But because Health Canada, which is like the Canadian FDA, they insisted that we keep people under supervision the whole time they're under the influence. So if we do it twice a week, that means that at least once a week, people have to take a day off work. And it's not like you do it once. You have to do it several times. We wanted to do it over 8 weeks. So we ended up doing it just once a week on the weekend. And then the way it worked is people come into the study and they get randomized either to psilocybin first or placebo first. And then they get 4 weeks of either psilocybin or placebo. And then everyone gets 4 more weeks of psilocybin. The first 4 weeks, it's blinded, so we don't know what they got, and they don't know what they got. The last 4 weeks, everyone knows that they're getting psilocybin. And that way, we wanted to assess expectancy and see how much of the effect is from the drug and how much is because this is what people, the placebo response. And so in short, we didn't find a lot of signal when it comes to depressive symptoms. We only, out of maybe 5 or 6 ways that we measured depression, one was a significant drop in the psilocybin group. It was in a measure called the dysfunctional attitude scale. It measures cognitive tendencies towards depression. So it's kind of attitudes. An example is, how much do you believe the following statement? If I fail partly, it's as bad as failing completely. If you believe this, then you're more likely to be depressed. And people who were in the microdosing group were lower in this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they were not lower in any other kind of depression assessment. And we also measured a bunch of other things like personality, mindfulness, creativity. We're still in the process of analyzing a couple of our measures, but we found almost no other significant effects. So I think that the dose of 2 milligrams of psilocybin once a week for 8 weeks is not effective.
Once a week is still little. Like, so based on my observations, once again, not a scientist, not a medical advice, but there's a lot of people that when they get off antidepressants, they use microdosing mushrooms.
Yeah.
And it helps them. And they report like it really helps them.
Yeah.
So can't really, not a science, not double blind, but I've had plenty of people that help too. So, but I think it's mostly like 2 days on, 1 day off. Anyway, so definitely works, maybe placebo, but placebo in itself can be a very positive thing.
Yeah.
But like, why did they choose once a week? Like
So like I was saying, it's because I didn't want people to have to take a day.
Because of the work part.
Yeah, because I want, if this medicine works, I want people to have access. And I also, there's a real problem in psychedelics research that most participants look like me. And the question isn't, do psychedelics work for white guys? It should be, do psychedelics work for humans? So I wanted to get a more diverse sample. And we did. We had a lot of people that are non-white, a lot of older people. The average age was like 44 or 45, which I think is really important.
It's too bad you couldn't figure out how to give them a bit more.
But I consider the study to have been a feasibility study. Mm-hmm. And now we have enough evidence to convince Health Canada that people can go home. So we can do it twice a week. But honestly, what was really, everyone who participated in the study got so much better. People were very depressed and they became very mildly depressed by the end.
So they got much better, but it just was not showing in the measurements.
There's no difference between the groups.
Yeah.
And what was very much predictive of if they got better is if they guessed they were in the psilocybin group. So people had, it's like expectation, the placebo response, that is a key here.
Yeah, it's that understanding that placebo is not a side effect.
Yeah, it is the core, I think it's the core mechanism. And I think having seen other talks at this conference, other people agree with me. It's becoming, I think, more and more clear that what matters most is the container. And the psychedelic experience is a catalyst. And it is very important for people because it's such a powerful psychological experience. But what matters is, are you in a safe environment? Are you getting good care? Are you being made to feel like you're important? Are you making connections within yourself and with other people? Those are the things that are going to support your recovery. And the medicine is important, but I think what's really, really important is everything around it.
Yeah, setting is really important. And then there's a couple more S's. People say it's like skill, as in like your experience with working with those medicine. And there's another S, very elegantly put, but I'm not remembering it right.
There's a controversial thinker who is of the original wave of psychedelics named Betty Eisner. She did some very sketchy things that I only recently learned about. Your listeners might want to check out the paper by Patrick Plesha and Tal Davidson. What is it called? I don't remember, but it's about Betty Eisner and how she was a controversial figure. Her important contribution was the introduction of the social matrix to set and setting. So it's not just about your current set and setting. It's also where do you come from and to where do you return, right? Think about addicts that go into rehab and they go back to their original setting or their original matrix, as Betty Eisner would put it, and they relapse because it's hard because you have this entire cultural matrix around you that decides a lot of how you do. So I think this is a really important aspect as well.
Yeah, I like to say that if I would to make a formula about obviously the ayahuasca retreats that we run, what percentage of healing comes from the ayahuasca, what percentage of healing comes from the group, integration, etc. Group part is very important. Setting is very important. So it's like, and of course ayahuasca is as well, but ayahuasca acts more like a catalyst, like something that opens the door.
Yeah.
And I would honestly prefer for people to do it in a group as opposed to one-on-one because and placebo, man, it's, have you heard about contact high?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's like, that's the effect as well. Even, if people are having great experience on ayahuasca, let's say 60% of group are connecting really well, the other 40 will feel good as well because they're like, I'm going to get there. And it's this motivation. So,
yeah. Sorry, can I just add one more thing about that? So I agree with you so much. I think this is an important part. And I think this has been part of the reason that we're finding, I think, relatively modest effects for psychedelics is because the way studies are conducted is in this atomized way. We're doing individual therapy, and that is not how these substances were meant to be used. We need to be doing it, like you said, in a group, because I think that a big part of the mechanism of action is it espouses, it cultivates a sense of connectedness to yourself internally, to people around you, to your family, to the land, to humanity. And that is what's going to heal you. Because I think we become so alienated from each other. And through connection, that's what makes us feel better.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this way of thinking. Obviously, we're here at psychedelic conference and psychedelic science conference, and people that do science, they want to like isolate everything and put everything in a box. But it's really hard to measure social container, right? Because each time it's different. Like every group that we receive at the retreat is a little bit unique. It has its own personality, and but the simple thing is like, let's not reinvent the bicycle. Like they've been, indigenous people have been working with those plant medicines for a long time, and they figured out that it works best in the group. We can just do it and just have the results.
Yeah. Sorry, I have more to say. I think this is part of, if I had to pick reasons why I didn't find any results in my study, the first one would be the frequency of dosing, and the second one would be, it's crazy, man. Who microdoses and then sits around in a room the whole day alone doing tasks on a computer? That's not how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to microdose and go for a walk or paint. Hey, guys.
Yeah, so any benefit you get from the microdosing gets offset by the depressive.
Exactly. And
the depressive effect of not even moving.
Yeah. So I think just also to respond to what you were saying, you're saying how in science, we like to break things down. And yes, a lot of science is reductionist, but I think I can tell you I'm aware of how it's like there's I guess you give some, you get some. And in what I did, a very tightly controlled clinical trial, you get a lot of internal validity. What you got is what you got, and you're confident about that. But if you do a more ecologically valid version, so if you send people home with a dose, then you're more likely to find the way it is really in the world, but you're not going to be so confident about your results, because I might go home and I have a swimming pool and a tennis court and I can paint all day, and you might go home and you have to go to work under fluorescent lights for 8 hours. So we get different outcomes, and then it's hard to assess.
I have a swimming pool.
Sorry?
I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I'm just saying there are benefits to either approach. And I think the way to think about it, it's not like that any one study will give us the answer. We need a bunch of studies that are from different perspectives, and together we will see the actual picture.
Yeah, absolutely. There's certain things that just cannot be reduced. It's like measuring like a relationship between two people. Can't just reduce it to one interaction. It's like it makes no sense.
I partly agree with you. I completely agree with this particular example, but are you familiar with the concept of irreducible complexity?
No.
So this is unrelated to psychedelics. There are people who believe in intelligent design. It's a form of kind of creationism. And what these people believe is that there are certain parts of nature that could not have evolved through evolution because they're irreducibly complex. It's like, there's no way that this was a piecemeal kind of stage by stage development. And for example, they give the eye, which is, they say is like, it's too complex. Or there's I forget the name of the microbe. There's a microbe that has like a little tail, which it uses to move around, kind of like a sperm.
It's like an extremely complex electric motor with 100% efficiency. Yeah, I've seen this.
The example that these people give is like, if you walk on the beach and you find a watch, with perfect clockwork, you're going to assume that there's a clockmaker somewhere. You're not going to assume that just like everything
sand fell in such a way. That's, I think they use this example with the creation of life. It's like, there was a saline solution with nutrients in it. It's like, they're saying it's like, you're in a scrapyard and accidentally a Apache helicopter in a perfect state with the pilot synthesizes.
So that is, I agree with that. I think that this is what happened. I think that this happened actually, I think last year, chemists were able to create life from scratch using the original primordial soup. Mm-hmm. They created the same environment that existed on Earth 500 million years ago, and they were able to create a new cell from chemicals. So like the scientific approach is, there is no irreducible complexity. Everything can be broken down, or at least in the context of evolution by natural selection, everything could have evolved. Now, this is not to say that reductionism is always the correct approach. Some things are emergent properties. Some things are not their particular parts. But I think it's also important to remember that.
But in this case, scientists using primordial soup created life, right? Yeah. That's a pretty cool. I never heard about this. Yeah. But it was scientists that created it. Yeah, right? Take away the scientists?
Yeah, the idea is that it's very simple. And if things bash together enough, eventually they're going to just stay connected.
I really need to look at
this. Was a really highly publicized. This was in 2024. Please read it. And I might be wrong. They might be wrong. It's okay. I'm not attached.
You make me understand that I need to focus less on psychedelics and more on science.
Everything is interesting.
Let's talk about science. You're a big fan of open science. Yeah. What is it?
Oh, I'm so happy you asked. So, have you heard about the replication crisis?
Like the stuff with AI?
No. So let me tell you. I assume that many of you.
So here's what I understand by replication crisis. Because AI learned from internet.
Unrelated.
But let me see, maybe it's a similar thing. AI learned from internet. Now everything created in internet is using that information. It kind of keeps repeating.
That is dead internet theory.
Okay. This episode is sponsored by Lawira Ayahuasca Retreat. Most of you know Lawira if you've been listening to this podcast for a while. Some of you might have already been to Lawira before. For those who don't know us yet, we started Lawira with my wife 4 years ago. At Lawira, we combine authenticity, accessibility, and affordability. Lawira is currently highest rated ayahuasca retreat in South America with more than 630 5-star reviews and an average rating of 5 stars. If you come to Lawira, you'll experience powerful, authentic ceremonies led by our indigenous shaman, Fernando, in a very beautiful venue just 1 hour south of Medellin, Colombia. We're surrounded by nature and have comforts like hot water, Wi-Fi. At Lawira, our team has guided more than 2,000 people through this life-changing transformation of ayahuasca experience. At the same time, we keep it very affordable. At the moment, we have retreats starting at as low as $645. So whether you're coming for healing, clarity, or a deeper connection to yourself, Lawira is the best choice. If it is your first time drinking taking ayahuasca, you will love our 3.5-hour preparation course and integration support. All of that is included in price, as well as pickup from Medellin, accommodation, and ayahuasca. There are no hidden fees. Visit lawira.com to book your retreat or learn more. Lawira, connect, heal, grow. LAWAYRA.com.
Which is also a huge, well, I don't know if it's a problem. I think it's really interesting. But no, the replication crisis is what happened in 2011. So we assume that psychology is a science. And so in science, let's say, I drop a ball from a certain height, it'll take it a certain amount of time to reach the floor. If you drop the same ball from the same height, it'll take the same amount of time, right? So you replicated my experiment. Now, in psychology, we assume that it's a science, but for decades, no one was replicating experiments. So we didn't really know if other people's work was sound. We just assumed that it was. And then in 2011, a paper was published by some of the most high-profile psychologists in the field, where they tried to replicate 100 of the most canonical experiments in psychology. And I think 60-something did not replicate. And that created the replication crisis, because all of a sudden we're like, oh shit, so much of what we thought we knew, we don't know. And this has kind of been ongoing ever since. There's a real problem in science in general, mostly in psychology and biomedical sciences, where there's not enough replication, and people's incentives to publish are just get it out there as fast as you can and not do the best science you can. And so in, I think, 2014 or 2015, this counter movement, which is the open science movement, was trying to correct this issue. Because really, we're trying to build something that works. We have a strong foundation, and everything is so shaky if we're not rigorous in the science. So the way to do rigorous science is, first, you pre-register your hypotheses. So you plan on what you're going to do. You plan which tests you're going to make. Then you register it online. And then no one will know about it until you want to publish a paper. And then when you want to publish your paper, you show the plan and you show what you did and you show that they fit. And where they don't fit, you say, I actually didn't plan for this, but I thought it would be cool, so I did this, but consider that exploratory. This is important because a lot of what people do is they just do a bunch of things. They don't really think about it too much. And then they run tests on it, and whatever is significant is then what they present, and they create theories after the fact to say, oh yeah, I totally knew what I was doing. And that is dangerous because a lot of what they find is just by chance. And so this is a problem across the board, but in particular, this is a problem in psychedelics. Because in psychedelics, people are so eager to publish. And it's like everyone believes in what we do so much that people are not taking their time to check all of what they do. So I think it's really important to pre-register. Now, in addition, there's two other important components. One is open methods, open materials. That means whenever I run a study, everything I did is then available online. So if you want to run the exact same study, you don't have to contact me and ask me how I did it. You would just take it, do the same thing. And then you can make sure that I did it correctly. The last important bit is open data. So once I'm done analyzing the data, I share it with everyone. And then that gives an opportunity for junior researchers who maybe don't have access to cool data. They can run analyses on this and they can publish, and people can check my work. Maybe I got stuff wrong. That's okay. I'm human and I want people to check it. And so these are all very, very important in psychedelics specifically, so that we can share, we can collaborate, and can do good science. And in general, no matter which field you're in, so important to do this.
It's basically like open source, but for science.
Exactly.
I think you mentioned that, everyone's so eager to publish studies because they just want to legalize everything and just kind of progress. And I think the reason for this is they kind of already know that it works. And because they've experienced it themselves. Like in my case, we hosted like more than 2,000 people, so many success stories.
Wow.
And just at this conference alone, I've met 3 people. They came to us like, oh my God, I went to Luara 2 years ago. My life has changed. I did this. I trained this. And it's like, oh, thanks to that experience. So I know it works.
Mm-hmm.
And now, of course, we like, let's do some science to prove that it works and just move onwards. And I think maybe that's where it's coming from.
That is a problem. The other problem is that I think the incentive is to build a career for yourself as a scientist. And the way you do that is by publishing as many papers as you can. And so it's quantity over quality. And it's very dangerous.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, sorry, I just want to say, I don't believe that these things work. I've had my experiences and they've been positive. But my aim is not to show that it works. It's to see if it works.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the correct scientific approach.
That's definitely a scientific approach. But isn't it, let's say a long time ago before we had scientific method, that's how we do science. We just do stuff, and if it works, that's how I figure out. And like, isn't it science that I can say, 100 people came to my door and 70 of them are no longer depressed and have a better life just because they told me and that's what they believe. But then it's like, yeah, is it placebo or not? But like, honestly, who cares?
That's a good question. These are good questions. I think part of what I love so much about the scientific method is that it's kind of self-refining. So when we first started when they first kind of came up with what is now the scientific method, they were just, as you say, they were just taking notes. They were doing whatever they were doing in the world and keeping notes so they can compare it to other notes. And then over time, it became more and more not just whether things work, but how do things work.
Mm.
And so I think if all other things being equal, so I think microdosing is actually a great example to this. If you ask people, like in surveys that I've conducted, people who microdose report so many benefits: improved mood, improved focus, improved creativity, reduced anxiety, you name it. And so if that is enough, we could say people should just microdose. And if some people will get these benefits, some people won't, and whatever, it's not a big deal. But then there's a couple of other things to consider. If you're microdosing, it might interfere with other psychiatric medication that you're taking. If you're microdosing, it costs money. And if you're microdosing, it might be cardiotoxic. Like, we don't know about this yet, but just based on the binding profile of psilocybin, it might be bad for your heart. So over time, it might be degrading your heart valves. So there is a cost to doing this. And that's why we need to figure out if it is effective, because if it's effective, we can say, look, there are potential harms and potential benefits, and it's up to you to decide what you want. But if there's no benefits, if it's just harms, people should know about this too.
Yeah, I mean, everything, I think everything in life has some side effects.
Yeah, nothing is perfect.
Something has to be, and then you have to figure out, whether it's worth it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people should be allowed to do it.
Allowed? Yeah,
people want to test on themselves.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Honestly, I'm a fan of science in a way, because I used to be an engineer before I became, ayahuasca retreat leader and a hippie and all those things. I'm not really a hippie, but I'm just joking. But basically, spiritual person. So I kind of like things that can be explained. And how can I? So I have 700 people a year that come through our doors. Holy cow! What can I do to say, okay, this is real science. This is not just N of one, or it's not just anecdotal. What is the low-hanging fruit that I can do to prove that it works? Because I know it works.
Yeah, track them. So I work with One Retreats in Jamaica. And what we do is we track people's well-being before, during, and after retreats. And so once you start tracking how people are doing, you can say, look, people come to my retreat, and then by the time they've left, they're this much better. And 6 months later, they're this much better. And then the next thing you can do is, if people sign up in advance, you can start tracking them well before they come. And then what you're doing is essentially comparing to treatment as usual. Because people are on antidepressants, they're in therapy, they're doing what they can without the medicine. And then you can say, look, when people are taking SSRIs and going to therapy, this is how well they are. But after they come to my retreat, boom, they get so much better.
So if I get, how many people should I get before, after, and like 1 month later? Would that be enough to make a study and say, blah, 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 the effects of ayahuasca on overall well-being?
Yes, but I don't think then the question is, can you say what is it, the ayahuasca? Is it your retreat? Is it your personality? What is making the difference? You might have no personality, clearly.
No, but I'm not in every ceremony anymore, so.
Yeah, but like, is it your other guides?
Yeah.
And then,
no, but that's once again, I can prove it because I've had, since the beginning, probably 3 different heads of facilitation and different team, but the result was always the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
So but this is your subjective.
No, that's what testimonials say.
But the testimonial, I think once you make it quantitative, you can really compare. So you can also compare between facilitators.
Yeah. It's, yeah. Is there maybe like an app where I can use to track them? Because it seems so much work.
Oh, no, you have to hire someone like me to do it.
Okay. I don't think I can afford you.
Yeah, I can suggest other people.
Sounds good.
Some people would do it.
Maybe a volunteer, somebody who wants to come and drink some ayahuasca and explore that. Because I really want to do something.
Yeah, I'm happy to. There's people at the conference that are more junior than me. I might be able to help you.
How can I, people ask me like, oh, how does it work? And shaman says it's plant spirit. Scientist says it's neuroflexibility. Different people have different explanation. I don't know which one. I can have my own. I just know it works based on my observation. Once again, unproven yet.
Yeah.
What can I do to learn how these things work? Because like it's something happens in the brain. It's so complex. There's so many factors.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any ideas?
It depends on, I think you kind of alluded to this. It depends on your epistemic approach. If you subscribe to more like indigenous ways of knowing, then you would, I guess, it would be more about the spirit. And
how do I measure plant spirit?
I don't know. This isn't my epistemic space. If you want to do it scientifically, then I had my suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
But that's more psychological. If you want to do it more biologically, you can take people's blood and look at biomarkers, look at genetics. There's many ways to do it. In my opinion, it's the container that matters most. It's what you do before, during, and after the ceremony. I think that is the key thing, because maybe another way to think about it is, yeah, either, the spirits arrive and they take some of the bad things from out of you, and then there's space. Or maybe it's more kind of cognitive flexibility that you can, for a short amount of time, you can learn new behaviors. And that is key, because then once you have this kind of, this short period, it's called a critical period in like the neural cognitive understanding of things. It's like you can relearn things. So if before you were thinking, I am a bad person and I deserve to suffer, you have a short period of time when you can relearn and maybe say, maybe I'm an okay person. I deserve to have an okay time. So this is my opinion. How to measure it? Again, it depends on where you're coming from. You might want to talk to some indigenous leaders from your area and see if they're willing to share their opinions.
Yeah, we definitely need more science just so that people can trust this medicines more and know it's safe. In your studies, in your observations so far, and your knowledge about microdosing, let's say mushrooms is the most common thing people microdose.
It's been a very interesting trend. So the first survey we ran was in 2017. And it was probably 2 to 1. So like maybe 65% were using LSD and the rest were using psilocybin. But that is now switched. And I think in the most recent survey we ran that we analyzed in 2023, there's another one that's currently being analyzed from 2025. Psilocybin was twice as common as LSD. I think it has to do with how it's just a lot more popular. And in Canada, you have a lot of dispensaries So people just go get it. I don't know what's going on in other parts of the world, but I assume it's just about kind of what's socially acceptable.
Yeah, we're feeling mushrooms are also very easy to propagate and spread because, you just send some spores and stuff like that. You don't need a laboratory to...
Yeah, but LSD it's so easy to send a finished product. So I think that's why for a long time, for like 30 years, when these drugs were super illegal and kind of culturally also sanctioned, people were using a lot more LSD because it's easier to smuggle.
Yeah. So you said you personally experimented with LSD microdosing and psilocybin microdosing?
Yeah, I for microdosing, there's good reasons to prefer LSD. So the amount of psilocybin in the same fruiting body in the same mushroom can vary up to 500%. So if you and I take 2 parts of the same mushroom, I could be tripping balls and you could be feeling nothing. So
depending on if it's a root or a stem or
it's not about that. No, I thought that too, but it's just kind of random, or at least we haven't been able to detect the pattern. So that's one thing. So if you microdose, you might have kind of a surprise trip. And I think a lot of people who microdose have had this experience of a surprise trip, which is unpleasant.
I've had it before.
Yeah. And then the other thing is mushrooms only last for a few hours, whereas LSD is like, twice as long, maybe 3 to 4 hours for mushrooms, is 6 to 8 hours for LSD. So if you're taking it on a work day, let's say you take your microdose at like 8 a.m. You start feeling it at 9. If you took mushrooms around 1 p.m., you're going to crash a little bit. If you took LSD, it'll last you until the end of your workday. So I think it's a better fit in that sense. And finally, as I said before, psilocybin is more likely to be cardiotoxic. So I think LSD is safer for that.
Yeah, I've never tried LSD somehow, but the crash that you described, that's definitely familiar. And that's that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, if you observed that, in some people, mushrooms microdosing make you feel just better. And sometimes people get more anxious. What do you know about that?
Yeah. So this is something that we found pretty consistently in our surveys. So we asked people to describe the 3 main benefits and the 3 main drawbacks of microdosing. And we saw a lot of these parallels where some people were describing, for example, their anxiety got better, and some people were saying that their anxiety got worse. So I don't know. I think it's probably mostly due to set and setting. Like I said before, if you can do whatever you want, if you can go out on a walk, if you can be in nature, it'll probably reduce your anxiety. But if you're microdosing and going to the office, it'll probably increase your anxiety. Yeah, I think set and set.
What if your office is in the nature?
Then,
in my case,
then you're living your best life, and you do need to microdose.
That's true. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I do have a little office overlooking the nature. It's perfect. But I do definitely. It's like a lottery. Sometimes you feel better, and there's nothing. I definitely noticed that I cannot take a microdose before going to bed. It makes me awake.
Yeah, it makes sense because this is one of the pretty recurring drawbacks that people reported, is that it interferes with sleep if you take it too late in the day, because it affects your serotonin receptors, and serotonin, downstream from serotonin is melatonin, and that affects your sleep. So I would recommend for people who do want to microdose to do it earlier in the day.
What do you observe? Do more people take microdose to heal depression, or to just improve their cognition, or to get better? What is more prevalent in the space?
By far, people microdose to improve mood. That's the most common reason, followed by creativity and wanting to be having better performance, so more focus, stuff like that. Yeah, but I would say about 30% of people microdose to improve mood, and then everything else is a lot less. By the way, it's very interesting. So in the first time we ran a survey, we kind of asked people just say why they microdose, and then their qualitative responses, and we analyzed them. And then in the next survey, we gave people some pre-made answers. We said, check this box if you microdose for this reason. And so we had everything that we discovered before, like improved mood, reduced anxiety, substance use, all that stuff. But we also added a just curious option. And that was the second most common after improved mood.
Yeah, definitely. Because like it happened to me when I discovered microdosing for the first time. You just see all those videos of people raving about, like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then you want to try it, and then you try it. It's like, hey, it's actually not bad. And then it's an amazing tool. Really helped, for example, in case of my wife, when she was in postpartum, she got a little depressed. And I mean, I don't really want to suggest her taking antidepressant, or not that I'm to choose, I'm not a doctor, but because then she gets addicted to it. And so it helped her a lot. So what do you reckon, let's say, once again, we're not doctors, I'm not a scientist, it's like, but I would say there's very comparable, based on my observation, anecdotal study, there's very comparable relief from depression with microdosing and with antidepressants. But in microdosing, you can stop any moment, and antidepressants, if you stop, you get like completely crippled. What do you think that is, and I'm like, what? I don't know if it's a good question to you, but like, why is one so addictive and the other isn't?
Well, they operate differently. So, yeah, that's kind of the most obvious reason. These are just different substances. But I think let me pivot a little bit. I think that it is becoming, evident that psychedelics in large doses at least, are roughly as effective as antidepressants. And I think this is amazing because antidepressants suck. They have such bad side effects. And like you said, they're addictive. And with psychedelics, you can take a large dose once every few months, and that's probably enough. And if microdosing is effective, then it would be the same. Like the side effects people are reporting is like, feeling a little bit hot or cold, some GI stuff, sleep problems, nothing major. People with SSRIs are like, they lose their sex drive, they gain weight, they become fatigued. It's like really, really bad things. So if the case is that psychedelics are as effective as antidepressants, that's amazing. So we found an antidepressant that basically has no side effects.
Like a lot of people don't know that the very first antidepressant brought to the West was actually MAOI from ayahuasca.
Right. And we discovered serotonin thanks to LSD. We were like, oh, LSD is doing something to the brain. Let's track that. And then because LSD mimics serotonin. And that's how we discovered serotonin, which is now like such a huge thing.
Yeah, and you say like people taking a large dose of psychedelics every few months, and it's same as having antidepressants. What about those people that do it once and they're good for a few years?
That's amazing. I think that's less common, but that does happen.
Yeah, it's definitely less common.
Yeah, I think we should maybe try and study these people and understand what makes them so susceptible to like improving their quality of life.
Let's study them. Help me out. I need to find someone to figure out that whole science stage.
Sure.
It's really cool. Talking about science, please help me understand this. My bro science understanding of SSRI versus psilocybin is this. SSRI is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So basically it prevents your serotonin to be absorbed by your body, and it keeps your levels artificially higher.
Yeah.
Psilocybin, when it breaks down to psilocin, the molecule looks a lot like serotonin, and it kind of acts like artificial boost in serotonin. So in a weird way, in a very reduced bro science approach, they're doing kind of same thing.
In that, yeah, in the bro science way, yeah. Although I'm a little hesitant because I think that was a very accurate kind of high level description. Yeah. I think the most important thing to know is that we don't know how SSRIs work. When I took a course in this when I was in undergrad, and I remember being presented with 5 different theories of how SSRIs work, and then a bunch of evidence that support this theory, and then a bunch of evidence that disprove this theory. So we don't know how SSRIs work. It's the serotonin hypothesis of depression has mostly been disproven. It's not like you don't have enough serotonin and that's your problem. The brain is probably the most complex thing that we know in the universe. It has so many processes and sub-processes and just like, nested systems. We don't know anything. So serotonin is definitely a key component of whatever it is that's happening. But it's, this is a reductionistic approach.
Yeah.
And this is not the correct way to look at it. It's more holistic as the way.
You see, I'm somewhat of a scientist myself.
Yeah, it's clear you have a scientific education.
Yeah. Very interesting. Well, it's very fascinating. I'm kind of asked you everything I wanted to ask. Is there anything else you think we should talk about?
I just want to say about open science that for people who read original science, like original, articles that are published in scientific papers, only believe people who have pre-registered their hypotheses and are part of open science. The other people, you don't know what they're doing. Maybe they're doing good work. Maybe they don't. But if you remember only one thing from this conversation, trust the open science people because they are being transparent. And that's the most important thing.
Check your science, guys.
Yeah.
I'm sure every listener of this podcast reads scientific studies maybe at least once a week.
Great.
Just kidding, but I know some do. Thank you so much. I wish you best luck at your talk. Let's do some science.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Guys, you've been listening to Ayahuasca Podcast. As always, with you, the host, Sam Believ, and I will see you in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to support us and psychedelic renaissance at large, please follow us and leave us a like wherever it is you're listening. Share this episode with someone who will benefit from this information. Nothing in this podcast is intended as medical advice, and it is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This episode is sponsored by La Huayra Ayahuasca Retreat. At La Huayra, we combine affordability, accessibility, and authenticity. La Huayra, connect, heal, grow. Guys, I'm looking forward to hosting you.